Max was just always very real.
He went about as far as he could to tell the world that what happened wasn't right.
You can't let people walk all over you. The team at the time, collectively, we weren't happy at all with the car. Max wasn't happy. This is not working. We need to try something quite radical here. Now, I was on board with it because the idea was, let's try something quite crazy, but it might help get a direction for Liam and for the team going forward to make this car a bit easier to drive. And so we decided, okay, let's start from the pit lane and basically radically change a car. Like a change you would never do on a race weekend.
Right.
You know, like a normal change times 10. It's kind of a shot in the dark. And even if it kind of works, you know, the chance of it working over a race was very low. So, and I knew all of these things, but it was sort of proposed to me as this is going to help you for the future. And so I ran it. It sucked for this race. Like the car was so hard to drive and like basically destroyed our race. But honestly, I didn't care at the time because I was like, this is, you know, there's a reason we've done this. Yeah. And then flew back to the UK for simulator on whatever it was, a Tuesday or Wednesday. And then on Monday, I get the phone call, oh, actually, we're switching you. And I was like, what? Why did we do? Like, if you'd told me before the race, okay, we're going to run this crazy car for your last race in a Red Bull, or we're going to run the setup that you've run all weekend, what do you think I would have said? That at the time was like a really hard thing to deal with. But then I had Japan literally the next week. I just didn't have time to compress or think about any of this. And I had to then go to VCARB and just try and do the best, you know, prepare and do the best job possible. But it made that whole experience quite tough. In general, Max was just always very real in such a high level, you know, position. Was, you know, such an accomplished position that he's in. He's had so much success. It'd be very easy for him to not be like that. And it's not just with me. He seems to be like that, you know, with everybody. And I think Max is somebody that just wants to race cars and loves to talk about cars, loves to talk about racing. Even when I was a reserve, actually, like I always noticed that he would always make an effort to like just acknowledge me and say hi and stuff like this. And when I first was a reserve, this is ages ago, so it was like 2021 or 2022, was like the first couple of times I'd go to a race as a reserve. And even then, you know, he knew I was racing F2. And so he'd come and ask me about it. How's F2 going? You know, how's the car? You know, how's everything feeling? And I just like, the fact that he was asking me about my stuff, I remember at the time was just really cool. And he's always been very real like that. So, and then when I went to Red Bull, through all of it, he was very supportive. You know, I won't go too much into detail about it, but he was very supportive.
I remember seeing a couple comments he made and a couple of social media posts he liked. And I know it's very difficult for him because he's still in the team and things, but I sort of felt like he went about as far as he could to tell the world that what happened wasn't right.
Yeah, 100%. He was, I spoke to a lot of people during that time, but I spoke to him, you know, about how, you know, about it basically. Yeah. And he was very supportive, yeah.
And what did that mean to you?
I think I just really, you know, appreciated it. You know, I think I was so excited to, not to go against him, but to go, you know, be in a team with him and, you know, be able to have the opportunity to basically be in a car that's the same as him and just see everything that he does. Basically have a driving lesson from, you know, from the best in the sport, basically. And that was something I was very excited for. And I never went in there, you know, like these guys that go in there and talk about trying to, you know, go in and beat him straight away. And it's just such a stupid thing to do, I think. I think it's more, you know, having somebody like him to learn off was very exciting for me. So
can you give us a moment where you saw him do something and thought, he's good? Not even necessarily when you shared a team, but at some point you would have had
I'll never forget this. Very first time I went into Formula 1 was Zandvoort, and it was wet in FP3, and I'd never driven the car or the track, you know, together. It was a very hard weekend. I basically went out trying to learn the car, trying to drive on an intermediate tire, which I'd never driven before. And we're getting through the session, and basically in a Formula 1 car, especially last year's cars, and like the previous generation, you have to be so confident to drive these cars. Like the commitment you have to have, which is also why the Red Bull thing was probably even more evident for me that it looked really, really tough, is because even if you're at 99%, you're slow. You know, you're losing so much lap time. You have to be so committed. So it's wet, and towards the end of the session, I was trying to build up, you know, confidence driving this car. And we come around the sort of last corner, second to last corner, and I'm letting him by, and Max comes by me and just power slides this Formula 1 car across the curb. I just remember seeing it and just being like, there's no way I can do that right now. Like I'm so uncomfortable. Yes, it was my first session in the car, but I was just like, there's no way. And I came around the next lap and I remember just being like, I'm going to send it. And I slid out and I spun the car and I spun like down the hill and like, I was just like, oh man, it's just, but he has so many of these moments, you know, like where he just catches a car that is so on the limit, you know, like Barcelona last year, he had that save out of the last corner, which is just one of the biggest saves I've ever seen. Like little things like that probably people don't even remember, but like you see it from a driver's perspective and you go, that is impressive. And then it's the biggest, honestly, the biggest all-rounder though is his the way he races, which I've literally personally had experience with now. I had it with him in Miami a couple of races ago. Everybody has their ways of racing, but he's different to race against. His sort of mindset of just, you either back out or you crash.
What do you see that's like, wow, that's different?
Just the commitment level, I think, of and also just he almost just gives you the option of, you either stay there and we crash together or I'm coming by kind of thing. So,
46% of people have hidden cardiovascular risk that they have no idea about. That's what Do Health have found. But thankfully, I'm not one of them. And I only know this because I recently took the Do Health blood test. People in my family have had issues with their heart in the past. So my results showed that my ApoB is optimal. So ApoB estimates the amount of cholesterol-carrying particles moving around your body. The more you have, the more chance there is for cholesterol to settle. The good news is mine's optimal. But I also love the fact that I've now been given a plan from Do Health. So I need to drink more water, I need to take more steps, and I really need to focus on my sleep so that I know in 4 months when I take the test again, hopefully my stats and my data will have improved. This is all about getting in front of health, not reacting to it. If you're interested, check out dohealth.co/high performance and use the code high performance and see what's really going on inside your body. You can have huge respect for someone like that, but also your job is to believe that you can be that guy. You can be a 4-time world champion. You can be a 7-time world champion. Like when you see someone driving like that, is it daunting or is it inspiring?
It's more inspiring because at the end of the day, as you know, maybe arrogant as this comes across, we all have that inner belief. You know, we all believe that we can win.
Yeah.
I think if I was to think about myself, if I had that much time in Formula One, I'd probably be a much better all-rounded, you know, driver than I am now. So I think compare myself like that, but I do try and race him in these situations. So every time I get, like in Miami, we basically came together, we touched, you know, crashed into each other a little bit, and I do try and race him in these situations because in general I always try not to back out anyway. Like there's not somebody I would really do that with, and I try to race everybody sort of the same and not look at somebody different, but it is always different with Max.
I think in Canada, George was just laying a gauntlet down there and being like, no, this isn't happening now.
Yeah.
Like we're going to race each other. Do you know what I mean? And I think there's a moment as a driver
100%.
where you have to decide that in your career. Like
Max and Lewis, 2021, the first part of the year, Max was literally just every time they were next to each other, he would just door him. You know, Lewis would get pushed off, Lewis would back out, and he was racing smart, but there's a point where you can't race smart anymore because the other guy just knows that every single time you're going to lift. And basically they get to Silverstone and, you know, he didn't lift. And then that's what happens basically. So there's situations where there's being a smart driver, and I feel like this year I'm trying to do more of that as well compared to some of the, you know, incidents I had last year, or just the amount of incidents, let's say, where I was just not getting a result, you know, out of a weekend. And I think this year trying to be a smarter driver, but also keeping that you can't let people walk all over you.